Welcome to LS Plays FM and to a brand new FM21 guide. Today I'm going to be running through with you my top 5 tips in order to help you find wonder kids in Football Manager. Let's get into it. I'm now here then on Football Manager, and I'm here as the Borussia Dortmund manager, because it wouldn't be any other way if we're looking at wonder kids. Of course, you've got to be Borussia Dortmund, who have a really good history of bringing through wonder kids and also signing them into their squad. But before we get into this guide today, guys, if you do enjoy it and find it to be useful, do make sure to drop a like down onto the video. And of course, if you're not already and you want to keep up to date with any of my content, such as any FM21 guides or maybe my Road to Glory series with Kaiserslautern, the Red Devil Revival, then do make sure to hit that subscribe button and to ring that notification bell to be notified whenever my content here on YouTube goes live. Now then, though, if I get into the very first tip we're going to be looking at, which is regarding scouting assignments. Now, a lot of people in Football Manager don't like to look after their own assignments because they either don't know really what to do with them or they just can't be bothered, which is fair enough. But I'm going to run through you what I do with my assignments and how they can be really useful for both finding wonder kids and just players in general. They can be good at finding both of these. They really, really can be. And honestly, you really shouldn't just ignore assignments in Football Manager. In order to go into assignments, you go to Scouting here on the left-hand menu. And then on here, you go to Assignments. Once you click on here, first things you'll have to make sure you do is on this bit where it says Scouting Responsibility, if you click on it, sometimes it may have, say, your chief scout or director of football is in charge of this assigning scouts. If you click on it, for example, if I click delegate here, it says gives it to Lucien Favre here, he's my director of football. If I click take control, it lets me then take control. So you have to make sure you're in control of them, otherwise you won't be able to do this step. Once you have given yourself control of your assignments, you will see on here I have all of my scouts off doing something currently at the moment. So if I click on, say, Sebastian Frank here, he currently is on assignment over in Central Europe. If I click on here so you can see exactly what it is, I'll click on edit assignment here. You'll see at the moment he is off looking for scouted current ability of Superb, and he's over, of course, in Central Europe. And also I have another version of that same scout assignment as well. So if I click on Marcus Pilawa here, my other scout, and look at his assignment, he's also in Central Europe, but he's looking for scouted current ability of fairly good, scouted potential of excellent, and age is at a maximum of 21. So as you can see, I have 2 scouts in the same region looking for 2 types of player. One being a very good current ability player, and one being a player with very high potential. In order to set your own ones, because of course at the moment I've already got mine set, all you have to do to set your own is click on up here in the top left where it says create new assignment. You then have to tell your scout where they're going. So to do that, you click on this bit up here where it says scope, and you can either do it for a region. For example, you can go on here and then you can select, of course, a region, say Central Europe, Eastern Europe, maybe South America, for example. Of course, if you've got a scouting range of, say, only Europe, you won't be able to go to America. If you've got a scouting range of only America, you won't be able to go to Europe, and vice versa. Of course, if you have it at the top where I'm here as Dortmund, I have the option to scout across the whole world. I can do whatever it is I need to. You can also do it for whole continents or just individual nations. So it's up to you where you want to scout, but you have to pick somewhere first of all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for, let's say, North America. I'm not scouting North America at the moment, so I'm going to put that in there. I then just need to give it then some conditions. So first of all, if I want to scout for wonder kids, put in age, and then make sure it's at most, which it is normally by default. If not, you can click on here and then you can change it to is at least or is at most. And I just need to set a maximum age. And normally I set that to 21. So at the moment I'm now looking for just players at the age of 21. I need to then put in a potential ability and also a current ability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my scouts to look for a player who is at least fairly good current ability, which means 2.5 stars as their current ability. And I'm going to put the potential as excellent, which means at least 4.5. In other words, generally speaking, they're going to be wonder kid type players. Of course, you can put that however you want, but that are the levels I put it to. The final thing I also then do is where it says until finish down here on the duration, I change that to be ongoing, so this means the scout continues to always do this assignment. They never change it unless, of course, they basically leave or you tell them to stop. And then all you have to do then is click on start assignment, and then it will then choose a scout from the scouting pool to then do that. So if I go down, you may not be able to see it behind my webcam, I think you can just about. It says here that this scout down here is doing North America. So that is my first tip I will give you, is regarding scouting assignments. Now the next tip I'm going to go into is a really useful one, and one I use quite a lot in Football Manager, but it is only useful in game if you have attribute masking turned off. So what I mean by this, if I click on, say, a player here, I can see all of this player's attributes by default. If you go into a player and you see that they have, say, question marks, or if they have, say, ranges on players to use, this might not be quite as useful, but you can still use it. It's just not as effective. But if you do have attribute asking turned off, this is a really good method to use for finding players. So all you have to do is you go onto your player search, you go into scouting, go onto players, and then you click on the new search here on the top right. And then all you have to do first of all is set an age range for your players. So let's say I want no players over the age of, say, 20, for example. So I'll put that in there. And then you have to then just pick attributes. So what I do with this is I will select practically every single attribute excluding set pieces. And then I set a range of what I want to be able to see. So I'm going to put in crossing, dribbling, finishing, first touch, pretty much every single attribute that I can, with the exclusion of not bringing in set pieces. I'm going to do the same for goalkeepers as well, because you can find keepers doing this method as well. It's a little bit harder to find keepers, but it can be pretty decent. I don't put in punching or eccentricity. I don't put every single mental in there, even stuff like flair and leadership, because it can be useful, and then every single physical as well. So you put literally every single one in here. I then click on OK, and at the moment it's going to look for a player who has 15 in every single attribute. Of course, it's never going to happen. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to set this say to be, let's say I want to see at least a player who has 17 matches out of the 41. So I'm going to put that in there. Still currently we don't have anything. So what I'm then going to do is I'm going to lower down the values of my attributes down by 1. So I'm going to do it slowly one by one until players appear. So I've lowered it now down to being 14, and I've got given some players. Now, these players are all going to be probably quite expensive, so I lower it down maybe by 1 more. What it then gives me is it gives me quite a few more options. It gives me 93 players, of which all have at least 13 in 17 of the 41 attributes we've chosen. And then all you have to do is then look through some of the players on here and see what you think of them. Often I will look for teams which are quite small or maybe have low release fees, stuff like that, and that might be more willing to join my club, and everything like that. Also might be quite cheap as well. So for example, there is a player here at Atletico who has got a release fee of 7.5 million. If I click on him, I can see straight away he's a really good player. He's 19 years of age, looks a really, really decent player. And then that's one player found already really quickly. I can then obviously scout him and maybe even look to then go and buy him. But that right there is the attribute method, which I think is a really useful one, which you can use in FM21. Now, the next method we're going to use is one which is probably a little bit more well known and maybe not always used by people because it can take a little bit of time, and this can be a bit of a lengthy method. And what it is the international team method. So what this does, what it includes, is you go and look at the international first teams, the under-21s, under-23s, and see if there's any really young players who are already getting put into the first teams or in the under-21s and stuff like that, and then obviously scout them and see what you think of them. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, you have to just go and find an international team. So I'm going to say go for Czech Republic, because I know they often do pull through quite a good few number of wonder kids. So I type them in. I'm now on their page. If I go onto their senior squad, and I've already got it listed by age. If you don't already, make sure you list it by age, because then it's always going to list the younger players at the top. And straight away I can already see I'm a few years into the game. I'm at 2024, and there's an 18-year-old all in their first team. And if they're 18 at this point in time, they're always going to be new gen, regen players. So if I have a look at him, Roman Kratky, and straight away he looks absolutely fantastic. So I would then scout him. If of course I like the look of him, I can then try and buy him. I can then also go into the under-21s, and I can do the same thing. So there's a few 16-year-olds in here, small clubs, for example. This player, not so great, I can then ignore him. But for example, there's a player here at Sparta Prague who is 18 with quite a high value. So let's have a look at him and see what he's looked like. Andre Mook, he looks quite decent, really good physicals, great mentals at only 17. So again, I'd scout him, see what I think of him. And let's see, is there anyone else on here? Maybe might be quite a good option. What about, for example, Jakub Ficek here? Again, quite a decent looking player, only 18, very, very well rounded, lots of good mentals in there, another good option. So that's all you have to do with this method. You go to your international teams and then you have a look through the players who are already floating in the squad. Of course, you can check all the levels of the squads if you really want to go in depth. It's entirely up to you, and all you have to do is flick through each team, use the arrows up here, and then see who you can find. Some nations you're never going to find good players because that's just the way it is in FM, but it's always worth checking each individual team just in case. Now, the next method I'm going to cover with you is what is known as the media description method. It's one that's probably not as well known to players in FM. And what I mean by media description is if I click on, say, this player here and we go onto his information, every single player in the game is given a description of some kind by the game's media. So this player here is just called a young attacking midfielder. He's not a very good player, which is called that. but certain players who are very good and have very good potential will be considered to be wonder kids by the game. And so what you can do is you can get the media description added onto your shortlist, onto your scouting views like I have here. All you have to do to get it in there is if you right click on the top of the column, you do insert column, you go to general, and then it would be here where it says left foot and media handling style. It will be in between there. It'll be called media description. I've already got it added on, which is why it's not available here at the moment. And then when you add it in, it then just adds in, obviously, that column. And all you have to do once you've got it on the screen is if you scroll down to W, and of course in the alphabet on here, you will find the players who are considered to be wonder kids in game. You may have to find you scroll quite a way because there's often not that many in the game because of course there aren't that many wonder kids in real life, so you have to do a bit of scrolling. And then once you find them, you can either just go and search all of them by just obviously going and clicking on all of them and then right clicking scan, or you can add all of them to your shortlist. That's normally the way I do it, is I will add them all into my shortlist and I'll then get my scouts to scout them all over time. But that is literally all you have to do. And of course, if you're looking at wonder kids, generally speaking, they're going to be quite good players. So that is a really good and a really quick method to trying to find good players with decent potential. Now, the final method I'm going to run through with you is not so much one way to find just wonder kids, but it's a really good method to finding wonder kids who are available very, very cheaply. And what it is you look for players who are under, say, the age of 21, age of 20, for example, and whose contracts are running out. A lot of people often don't think to look for young players when on free transfer. They just kind of focus on older players. But you can find players whose contracts are running down and will be available on the cheap. So first of all, what I've done there is I've ticked the transfer option here and said it's a doubtful, so it's going to obviously look for players who are going to be willing to join the club. I've already got an age range selected from all of our previous scouts and everything like that, so I'm going to leave that on there. All I then need to do is click on edit search. I want to go to contract status and go for either expiring 6 months or 1 year. If I go 6 months, for example, see if there's any players from, say, Brazil or anyone like that might have their contract expiring. If I scroll to the top and sort it by value, there's some players from China, for example, also some from, say, LAFC, players over in America, for example, which are having their contracts expired. But it looks like there's not that many good players. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it, say, expiring in a year and see if there's any good youngsters whose contracts are expiring and may be available on the cheap. So, for example, there's this player here, Marvin van Houten from Zwolle over in the Netherlands. His contract has only got a year left and he may be available on the cheap. Either currently I might be able to pick him up for a cheap fee. If I was to bide my time and wait until, say, the January, I could then try and pick him up on a free transfer at the end of the year. So honestly, guys, if you don't already, when you are looking for, say, free transfers or players whose contracts are expiring, make sure to look out for younger players because you can find them and you can get good regen or new gen players and wonder kids on the cheap. We had a few over in the Twitch save over with Norwich City where we picked them up on free transfers and sold them for hundreds of millions of pounds only a couple of seasons afterwards. So do make sure you use this method to try and find cheap players. That, though, guys, is the final method I'm going to be going over with you today, and as a result brings this video here today to a close. And I really do hope you do get to use those methods. I've gone through all 5 of them and you find them to be useful and help you find some absolute gems in Football Manager, and hopefully for quite cheap as well. If you did enjoy the video, guys, today and you found it to be helpful, do make sure to drop a like down onto it. And of course, if you're not already and you are looking forward to seeing any more of my content such as these FM21 guides, then do make sure to hit that subscribe button and to ring that notification bell for whenever my content here on YouTube goes live. But guys, thank you very much for watching and I will see you again next time.